Hey, yo, welcome back to the Boston Sports Brothers podcast. Great to have a full crew this evening, all bros present and accounted for, as well as Mike Kadlick from CLNS Media, covering the Patriots down at Gillette Stadium all year long. And perfect day to have Mike with us after everything that's secured over the last 24 hours and this entire season with the Patriots. So, Mike, can't thank you enough for jumping on. How has your last 24 hours been?
It has been a whirlwind, fellas, but it was a fun one. I mean, and I hate to say fun because, as tumultuous and terrible as the Jerod Mayo era was, I think everybody can agree that it was time. And so, again, fun isn't the right word, but it was interesting to see how it all played out. I can't say I was terribly shocked. I know we'll get into all the details and the layers to this thing, but it's been insane. And we tried to reschedule this podcast like 5 times, so it's only fitting that it comes the day after Jerod Mayo actually gets canned. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me, boys.
Absolute fate to have Mike with us this evening and
It was meant to
recap
be.
everything that's happened. So we want to start things off today with Robert Kraft's press conference, and I think what I like to see was Robert came out and immediately sort of owned the situation and realized that he screwed up with the hiring of Mayo,
Yeah.
and realized that this team needs a fresh start. And so I think that I liked what he had to say. I am a bit confused though, as Elliot Wolf stays on for the time being. So, what were your thoughts from the press conference today, Mike?
Pretty much, exactly that, where I do think it was wise of Robert Kraft to, frankly admit that he was wrong and admit that he and Jonathan were wrong in the way this whole thing was handled. And from last night's statement to this morning's opening remarks, where last night he mentions there were all of these requests to interview Jerod over the years, and I didn't want to lose him. And so I put it in his contract that he was going to be the next head coach. And frankly, I shouldn't have done it that way was the gist of last night's release, where he basically wasn't ready yet. And he still thinks Jerod will ultimately end up being a head coach down the line, or a good head coach. Now, I frankly don't know how he gets another chance at being a head coach or even a coordinator at this point because of how much of a disaster it was. But thought it was good on him to, again, admit that he was wrong and not run this back one more time. It felt like the rumblings around the entire situation prior to a month ago was that they were going to try this again and give him the benefit of the doubt and, think that, okay, yeah, it's not great right now, but I still trust him to lead us moving forward. But after these last 4 weeks of, constant nonsense, frankly, in the media, and he goes out and he says things and he's got to take it back, and then they get smoked at home to the Chargers. There's fire Mayo chance. There's fire Mayo chance yesterday after a win. It just all became too much. And so I think it's good, that he actually had the tough conversation with him and ultimately made the decision. Now, on the front office situation, it's extremely fluid right now. I've heard multiple things, I don't want to necessarily say behind the scenes, but rumblings, and you read tea leaves and things like that. And as of right now, the only move that's been made is Jerod Mayo. It sounds like the entire coaching staff, as of now, is still intact. And, Elliot Wolf and Alonzo Highsmith and Macro and all those guys in the front office are still there. But the way Robert Kraft sort of went about it this afternoon was they're in place for now. But when we hire a head coach, they're basically going to have final say, a ton of input on not only the front office staff, but the way we scout and go for personnel. So I do think that's the right decision, where the guy that's coaching the team should be able to know what kind of players they want to bring in. But at the same time, it sort of seems like a backwards thing. And Elliot Wolf kind of feels like somebody in waiting right now, where you need somebody to be the babysitter for the next 4 or 5 weeks until you hire a head coach. So somebody's there running the football operations. Kind of wild that he could be in there making the decision on a head coach and then essentially be kicked out in the long run. But we'll wait to see what happens. But long story short, yeah, it's kind of odd where things are at with the front office, but thought it was good on Kraft to, admit that he was wrong and move on from Jerod Mayo.
So, Mike, in your opinion, what was the biggest thing that led to Jerod being fired? And in hindsight, looking back after yesterday's win, do you think that it would have been maybe beneficial to have fired him maybe a week ago, prior to maybe have the team kind of just fall apart so they didn't get the win?
So as far as I'll start with the tanking aspect first and the getting the win yesterday. I think that they did just about everything they can to a point to lose that game, where they pull Drake May after one series. They get in the developmental offensive lineman. Ramondre Stevenson hardly plays. The defense rotates in almost immediately. Guys, backups. Jelani Tavai gets benched for reasons for good reason. The That was one of the craziest things I've ever heard a player say in my time covering the team. I'm sure we'll get to that in the long run. But yeah, again, I think that they did what they had to do as far as tanking. Now, you couldn't send Joe Milton out there and say, hey, kid, go throw the football backwards and fumble on purpose. And when you're playing defense, let up and don't tackle guys. That's just not how it works. And I'm sure you guys understand that as any football fan would, where it's still a game. And Joe Milton is a 6th-round pick who is finally getting a shot to show NFL teams what he's made of. He's going to go out there and give it his all. So I think they did they did the best thing, the closest thing you could do to tanking, and that is putting in your backups and let the chips fall where they may. Now, Buffalo on the other end, they seem to kind of want to do the same thing where they're punting from their own, or the Patriots 35 and going for it on 4th down. And it was never going to work out that way. So I think even if they did fire Mayo a week early, Josh, I still see it as maybe a win. I don't think much would change from that aspect. Now, as far as where it went wrong, this last month, there was just constant nonsense around the team where they come out of the bye week, and Mayo had said from the beginning, he made a lot of false promises, but one of them was, we're going to be a better football team.
We might have lost Mark there for a second, but when hopefully he'll be right back. But no worries on that. Obviously, we know where he was going with that in terms of, that this team was gonna try and turn a corner here with the false promises, and they just didn't. But as we get, no worries,
My
we
bad.
no, don't worry,
Oh,
we're
good.
good. We were just saying, and let's sort of riff on this a little bit in terms of just
Yeah.
like some of the things that were said throughout the course of the season by Mayo, because I truly think that that's what cost him. Gabe, Big E, Kraz, we haven't heard from you guys yet. So before we
So
talk about like what's next, let's chat this up a little bit just in terms of
yeah,
like why we're at where we're at with Jerod.
so I was curious. So I've been saying since the second episode that since our second episode, which was like 20 weeks ago or so, that Gerard really wasn't the right guy, as we know, for the job. It wasn't like an impulsive hire, but there was a $10 million buyout. We all knew about that. And the Crafts were just too cheap to pay that out. And they just kind of, ultimately they were just like, we are promising the job to this guy. Let's just go for it. Do you know of have you heard any truth to that or?
I personally,
Oh no, the audio. Go,
Audio.
yeah, try and go headphoneless maybe, but that's all right. I mean, with Gabe, Big E, chime in on Mayo
Yeah,
here.
I mean, in my opinion, I don't think it should have ever even really gotten to this point. Like, I don't understand why Jerod Mayo was like hired in the first place. I know
Because he
that
went on a trip to Israel five
Kraft,
years ago.
right? That's what I was just gonna say. Kraft went on a trip. He probably smoked way too much hookah with Jerod and just got completely obliterated, made some
Bro moment.
promises that he couldn't turn back on, and here we are, like a season
Hey,
later. It's I don't know what
you know what
happened
they
there.
say. What happens in Jerusalem stays in Jerusalem. I think the interesting thing, like that, I think about when it comes to this is, yeah, there was a lot of stuff that was going on around the team this last month, but to me, really, where I think I started to think like this was not the right fit was the Colts game, and I think that Colts game, like that entire fourth quarter, was mismanaged. It's the in-game stuff to me that really was the nail in the coffin. Everything else around the team, obviously, you need to have a professional organization and be run that way. And that clearly wasn't happening over the last month. But to me, you got to have someone who can make good in game decisions. And, unfortunately, there's really no way to simulate that. You could put someone in a situation and say, hey, what would you do? Yeah, if there's no pressure, people are going to think they're going to be able to make a decision. When the pressure's on and you got to make a decision like that, that's not always easy. So I do want to understand or just give give Mayo like just like some I'm trying to find the right word here. Like give him some understanding that was learning on the job and he isn't there yet. And hopefully he gets another opportunity down the road. I think we all liked Gerard as a person,
Mhm.
just didn't think he was the right fit as a head coach here.
But Eric,
Yeah,
to your point, like decision making, why is he going to tell Antonio Gibson that he's starting running back, and then that same game he starts Ramondre Stevenson? It's just to me that's just you're going to lose players doing that, and it's just not a good look.
And
In
to
Go ahead.
play Mondre for one
Yeah.
series too. So like that to me was kind of like, why are you sending that message? Are you sending that to the player? Are you sending that to the fans? Is that being sent to the rest of the team? Unclear.
No, we don't have you, Mike. I don't know what's going on, but no worries on that. We'll keep rolling with it. I think that it's what you guys just said, and it's these three things, like the walkbacks, like on a weekly basis, you could count on him saying something Sunday to then go on to Greg Hill, as we've talked about on Monday, and walk it back. Uh, the player development this year, and you talk about the draft, and it's hard to know when it comes to the draft players that are developing, and like Jalen Polk at the beginning of the season looked like he was going to be a decent player, and then he doesn't get that foot down versus Miami in that game, and it just unraveled from there. And the entire draft class after Drake May this season just did not perform whatsoever.
Yeah, but is that on Gerard or is that
I
on the
was
front
just about to
office?
say
Well, it's like
Both.
it's both. I mean, you pick they pick the players, but you have to get them to, like, you didn't see any progress. And what Kraft said today during the press conference as well is like they regressed throughout the season. Like, you can go 4-13 and have it be like the Carolina Panthers, where you get to the end of the season, you're like, all right, like we made some strides here. You could have a 4-13 season like we did here and just have it completely unravel. But
You have
I
me back
think
yet?
that, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
he's
There
there.
he
He's here.
Oh,
is.
yeah.
This damn microphone. I took it off the microphone. I'm going old school. I'm
Raw
talking like
dog, baby. It's fine.
I'm raw. Yeah, right. We're raw dog. I'll add to that whole aspect as far as, like you said, 4-13. There's a difference between being the 4-13 Carolina Panthers with a first year head coach and being the 4-13 New England Patriots with a first year head coach. Where I think the tipping point here was that Arizona game where, and I don't know how far I got into this before I disconnected the first time, but it's post bye. Mayo had said that we're going to be our best football team in December. We're going to be getting better at this stage, and we want to play spoiler. And after the bye is where it completely took a turn, where you got, for lack of a better term, your shit pushed in Arizona. And after the game, he throws AVP under the bus, and that really started the first tumultuous, like, he's just talking out of school and doesn't really know where to turn right now. And it from that point on, it was AVP gets thrown under the bus, and then the Gibson thing you guys just mentioned, where all of these little things in a vacuum don't really matter. Coaches say stuff all the time that they don't really mean and kind of have to walk it back. But from when the first thing you say is burn cash, that you have to walk that back, to the people might not remember the quarterback situation where when he named Jacoby Brissett the starter, he brought the entire team in and they had a team meeting and he told the team and then he told the media and he wanted to bring us in because he. And then when they turned to Mac Jones, when they turned to Drake May 4 weeks later, it gets leaked to Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter, and the team doesn't even find out before them. And so the mixed messaging constantly on and on and on, where you mentioned the Gibson stuff, and then it unraveled from there. And I think when you're not playing your best football towards the end and you're actively getting worse, that's not a good position to be in. If you're getting better in this culture that they're trying to build, which, let's call it what it is, guys. It wasn't even a culture at all. It was a bunch of guys who liked their head coach because he played the game before them. Besides that, there was no real culture. And we saw that with all the comments that have been made from players over the last couple of days. And so I think that was the turning point, to get back to the original question, where post-Cardinals, post-bye, that's when you're supposed to be getting better. And all you did was get worse.
Yeah.
It's funny. I go back to preseason, and we were all over the Judon like dalliance that was going on. We actually had him looking at our Instagram story on practice that day.
Nice.
And I think we thought back on it and
Love
we were
it.
like, oh yeah, this guy doesn't want to be here. I actually want to turn around and be like, maybe Judon was right. This was probably not a great place for him to be this year.
Yeah.
I know he didn't have the best year in Atlanta, but he saw what was going on here and probably was like, hey, this is probably not the right place for me to be in my career. I need out. And
No.
I can't really blame the guy.
I can't either. And that's probably, I'm sure we'll get to front office in a second, but like that's one of the moves that Elliot Wolf can hang his hat on, where this guy wants out of here. I could turn him around for a 3rd round pick, where yes, he was right. He also probably wasn't right for this team as far as his skill set and where this team was rebuilding. And then they end up flipping him for a 3rd round pick. But yeah, no, I'm with you, where he looks at the entire thing. It's not really working. And it's like, well, I'm going to try and go to a contender. Now, granted, Atlanta didn't turn into a contender, but yeah, I'm sure he probably saw it in the same way.
Yeah, I think the last thing about Mayo and sort of why he got let go of is, we talk about the culture, but he, as you said, it was just a group of guys that were completely doing their own thing throughout the course of the season. The off the field issues that the Patriots had this season really stand out. You got Barmore smoking blunts down Elmwood Ave in Providence, getting in fights with the police. Like, why are you smoking weed when you got blood clots, buddy? You got Peppers, who had that terrible situation on the domestic side of things. And then you got Javon Baker with multiple run-ins with the cops throughout the course of the year. And then Tavai, Dietrich Wise, and Godchow calling out the fans the past couple weeks. And like, I'll speak for myself right here. I'm not going to speak for anybody else. But like, this is to the three of them. Like, you cannot sit there as players of the team and call out the fan base and say that we're spoiled when the product that you have put on the field the last 2 years has been absolute garbage. It does not matter what happened 6 years ago. The NFL is a results oriented business, and you failed in producing any sort of results. I hope Jelani Tavai is on a rocket ship to Alaska or wherever. Like, see you later, buddy. But just like to call out the fans like that, the ones who paid the money to go, like, I forget who said it, but there was I think the special teams coordinator. His name is escaping
Jeremy
me.
Springer.
Yeah, he laid it all out. He's like, it costs a family of four over $1,000 to go to Gillette Stadium and go watch a game. And I get that a player who's making millions of dollars does it, like, that's nothing to them, but like, it's blue collar people who go to these sorts of games. That, as Jerod Mayo did say, the fans pay the bills. So, and the one thing Jerod Mayo was right about, they were a soft football team this year.
Very.
It would have been one thing if this was a 14-3 team who lays an egg for one game and then gets booed. And Tavai goes out there and says, you got to stand through us here. We had a rough game. And even that would kind of be bullshit, frankly. But you're 3-13, dude. You have no leg to stand on here. I thought that was, I don't know if pathetic is the right word, but I guess I'll say it here. The way that whole thing went down with him was pathetic. He should have never said that. And then he was given an opportunity in the locker room the next day or later on that day to think it through. He said he had a conversation with Mayo. Mayo said they had a conversation. And every time a player has a conversation with Mayo, like Keon White, the same thing happened. They come back and they don't stand their ground, and they continue to just, talk out of school. And so that goes back to the culture thing as well. But yeah, the Tavai thing, that was a load of garbage to me. You can't call out the fans like that. They have every right to boo you if you stink. And you are 3-13 and your team stinks. That was a nonsense comment. I thought that was a non-starter to me. And you mentioned you hope he's on a rocket ship. I'm not going to go that far, but whoever comes in here as head coach and personnel is going to have a long conversation about him if that's how he thinks about the team's fans.
Good segue. Biggie, take it away.
Yeah, I think we're all ready for 2024 to turn the page and look towards 2025. And, the big item right now that we all need to kind of focus in on is the coaching search. Mm-hmm. Two names have really popped on up, but I think there's obviously going to be more. The two names, we're all familiar with Mike Vrabel just from his playing time here and his successful stint in Tennessee, which I believe him coming up last year for his Hall of Fame induction played a little bit of a role in his departure from Tennessee last year. So interesting that's kind of potential for him to come back. And then Ben Johnson, who I know that they requested to interview today. Is there anybody else that you would think of like, hey, like the Patriots need to include this person on their short list, someone that they need to like add in on their search?
To be frank, no. And I think those are kind of the two names if you want to go big or go home here. And the Rooney Rule and the extensive search is bullshit. Like, it's too bad that these minority candidates have to come out here and be token interviews. Like, that's, it's bullshit. And I don't know how you fix it. I'm not smart enough to fix it. But one other name is Brian Flores, who is already in a lawsuit with the league against the Rooney Rule because he was used as one of those things in with the Giants a couple years ago. And so I don't know if they'll bring him in. I think it's too bad that he would have to come in and be that just so the team could legally hire Mike Vrabel. Again, it's nonsense, but that's a name that I think he's deserving of a second chance as a head coach. The Tua thing went the wrong way, and Miami obviously stood by the quarterback in that situation. Aaron Glenn might come in, the Detroit defensive coordinator. I'm just not sold on him, nor am I frankly too sold on Ben Johnson just yet. Like, I'm fully Vrabel right now. And the only way I can get on board with Ben Johnson is if, that he's going to come in here with a veteran coaching staff, someone he can lean on, because you just made the rookie mistake with a guy in Mayo who had nobody to lean on, and the culture wasn't there. And he had no sounding board. It was him and a bunch of nobody. It was Marcus Covington, who was a defensive line coach. It was Alex Van Pelt, who I think Van Pelt was great as a quarterback developer, but not a great OC, not a great, someone who you can lean on with head coaching experience. And so,
Hey, Mike, how about a guy out of a little outside of the box? I got a couple actually: Pete Carroll and John Gruden.
Love Gruden. Not a huge fan of Carroll coming back. Carroll would, it's a retread because he was obviously here. I think he's older than Bill Belichick, I'm pretty sure. I think that would be a quick, I don't know how long it would last. I don't know if he'd have the success. Gruden is interesting. He's also in a bit of shit with the league with that situation. Now, what he did, what he said, obviously inexcusable. I'm not going to sit here and excuse that, but the way it happened and the way the league did him dirty was also BS. And that's why I think he's getting another chance, because it's almost like teams seems to be getting another chance. There's been some rumors and speculation. He was wrong, but also fuck the league is kind of where I feel like the attitude is with him. He's a great quarterbacks coach. He's a great quarterback whisperer. He can run a pretty good offense. And he would have been in Oakland for a long time, or Vegas, wherever they were at that point, for a long time if that hadn't happened. I don't know if they ultimately do it, but Gabe, I like where your head's at. My dad texted me the other day as soon as they fired Mayo. He was like, "Bring in Gruden. He's a grinder. He loves quarterback." So it would be fun, but ultimately, I think it's.
We love him on Barstool. Like we're big Gruden fans.
He loves
here.
Drake May.
He does love Drake May. That's very true. That was there was that video of him and Portnoy and Big Cat, right? The first day where it was like, "Oh, I love this Drake May," and Dave was going nuts. But I mean, shit, I give Gruden a chance. I give him an interview, see what happens there. I feel like they'll be fully. They'll exhaust this thing a little bit. So, yeah, we'll see. But no, ultimately, I do think it's going to be Johnson and Vrabel.
I think experience comes down to it, though, right?
Sorry.
Right? Like, I was just saying, I think experience is the word, right? We want someone with experience. And as much as Ben Johnson is exciting because he's been leading that electric Detroit offense, I mean, he didn't draft the players. He did develop them, which is great. But what else has he done with an organization as far as running the show? That's where someone like I think Vrabel really has the edge. And I'm going to throw John Gruden in there as well because, he's clearly got a lot of experience there too.
And that's what scares me about Johnson is the lack of experience because, we just saw it with Mayo. But I've sort of been pointing to like the Sean McVay example out of Washington where he was, 36, didn't know what he didn't know, never been a head coach, was an OC and tight ends coach for a few years. But then he gets the job in LA because of his charisma, because of his offensive genius. But what he does is bring Wade Phillips along as his defensive coordinator, where he has this old head, old school defensive guy who had also been a head coach in the past that, he could lean on for advice or talk about this or talk about that and help him set a winning culture that Phillips had been a part of before. And so that's, again, where I said before, I want to know what Johnson's bringing with him. If he brings something like that, that's a little interesting. If it's, I keep going back to like Adam Gase with Ben Johnson. He just gives me Adam Gase vibes. I know, but he called a good offense. He looks the same. He kind of goes crazy on the sidelines sometimes, and you just don't know about him yet. And that's what scares me so much. Vrabel is proven. He's done it before. He's been obviously here. So I think that's where they're.
And the one thing that Johnson is not bringing with him, he's not bringing the players. And the Lions have a boatload of talent. Sure. And I think that Mike Vrabel did a great job with the talent he had in Tennessee. He didn't have a great quarterback. He had Ryan Tannehill, and they made it to the playoffs, the AFC Championship game. So to me, I think it's Vrabel. I think you go with the proven guy and the guy who's done more with less. I think, and that's him.
Yeah, I want to transition a little bit from head coach talk to draft talk a little bit. Mike, have you done your research at all? You ready for this?
As much as I can to this point. Obviously, I know about the top.
Can you name 5 draft picks?
Probably 5 is probably where I'm at. No, right. A little bit more. A couple guys in the first round, second round. Your 6th round, 7th round guys, I'm good on that right now. Maybe I'll get there later, but I'm rather familiar with the top of the draft.
Yeah. So as everyone knows at this point, the Patriots with the win, they give up that number 1 pick that could have been, a bit valuable and in potential trade talks and things of that nature. They have now gotten the 4th pick in the upcoming draft. Where do you think they go there?
It's gonna lean heavily on free agency, obviously. Where if you can actually land a T. Higgins, then you can transition from having to go wide receiver at 4 to maybe tackle or maybe even defender. Guy like Abdul Carter, who is a beast out of Penn State. defensive guy, or Mason Graham, the defensive lineman for Michigan, where you need guys up front too. And I'm sure people would, if they go into free agency and they don't get a wide receiver or a tackle, and then they take a defender at the top of the first round, Elliott Wolf might not make it to Friday that weekend. Like it'll be that bad. But if you can fill holes through free agency, which I think they should, then you can kind of have your pick of the litter at the top. If they don't get T, if they don't do anything offensively, I think you have to go offensive line at that position. A guy like Kelvin Banks, guy like Will Campbell. It's just, I mean, Drake May was running around for his life for a lot of the season. He had a concussion. He must have had a second concussion. Good on him for passing protocol. He probably knew the answers to the test because he just got dinged up a couple weeks ago. But so yeah, you got to keep him protected. And I think he's good enough as a passer where he can make the guys around him better. We saw the resurgence Kayshon Boutte had once Drake May got in there. Even Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne got better as the season went on. So yes, they obviously need top tier talent at that position. T. Higgins would be huge. Ted McMillan would be huge. But I think May's good enough where you have to focus on the offensive line, keep him safe because he is, what you're going to have at quarterback, hopefully for the next 10 plus years.
And I think you share my exact sentiment of like get the big the guys that have already proven themselves, get them in free agency, get the offensive weapon like T. Higgins, or get a tackle in free agency, and then just draft in the trenches, like go off, like tackles, guards, defensive linemen, like
linebackers. Just
get big because they couldn't stop the run this year. They couldn't do anything up front. So like you said, I mean, I hope that free agency is fruitful for New England. It hasn't, they haven't had luck as of late, but if that happens, if they get T. Higgins and a few more pieces, and then they go into the draft, they should consider just pounding the trenches.
And I don't know where you guys stand on Elliott Wolf and the job he's done. Obviously, I mean, the draft was not good enough. He missed, he swung and missed tenfold on Jalen Polk, and that's a nightmare. But even I look at free agency, and it wasn't great with Chuks Okorafor leaving and stuff like that. But I still look at it, and I feel like they went out swinging. Where they did go for Calvin Ridley, and they did try and trade for Brandon Ayuk, and according to reports, they did go out and try and sign Christian Wilkins. And at the time, they just didn't have the pitch and made competitive offers and just weren't the team that guys wanted to come to. But now if you have a Mike Vrabel, you have a Drake May that was just proven, I think things can change. You have the most cap space in the NFL. Now, granted, that was the excuse last year where they're going to spend this year because they have the cap space, and then they didn't. But now they carry over more with a little bit, at least a proven quarterback. And hopefully, I think things can change. And that's why I don't want to say I have full trust in Elliott Wolf, but where before a month ago, I thought Jerod Mayo deserved more than one chance, I still think, and I don't know if it's going to go this way, but I think Wolf deserves another chance with the situation a little bit different around him.
So where do you want, excuse me, as far as like free agency upcoming this year, who would you want to see? Obviously, we know T. Higgins, a couple other wide receivers. Are there any other guys that you'd like to see in a Patriots uniform this year?
I mean, Ronnie Stanley would be awesome at left tackle. That would be the North. I don't want to say North Star because that was one of Jerod Mayo's sayings. That would be sort of the what you're looking for, like the lofty goal is a guy like Ronnie Stanley. T. Higgins is obviously the big one. Patrick McCarry is a name that I've heard from my podcast partner Taylor Kyles. He's in Baltimore as well, another offensive lineman. It's really, I don't want to say it's T. Higgins or bust, but like I don't want to settle for Darius Slayton, right? Like he's like just the definition of a mid-wide receiver to me. And I know he had some success in, the last couple weeks with Drew Lock and all that, but that just feels like KJ Osborne all over again. That feels like, I can't even think of some names right now, but long story short, I think you have to go after T. Higgins. That's the big one. And if you miss, I mean, I guess Slayton, and then you go to the draft, but that just feels, no more half measures. That saying from Breaking Bad. I feel like you got to go in, go home, balls to the wall, do whatever you can to get T. Higgins in a Patriots uniform.
Pay over the top.
One guy who I do think is interesting to talk about potentially returning is Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper, I feel like, was the only free agent I feel like who made a big impact this year. Would you be fine with Austin Hooper coming back with Hunter Henry to start the tight end room?
For sure. He was great. And Austin Hooper is someone who I was not frankly very high on before he came here. And when they signed him, I didn't love it. And now that could be my fantasy football instincts talking, where like I always saw that guy in fantasy. I was like, who the like? I don't give a shit about Austin Hooper. Like he's just a guy, and he caught that touchdown against the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I always had a bad feeling about Austin Hooper in my head. But then he came here, he had the experience with Van Pelt, and he was nothing but a professional. And he played some really good football too. Like he down the stretch, him and May really put together a sort of rapport there. And I mentioned being a professional. He was one of the guys in the locker room where when shit was hitting the fan over the last month, kept saying, no, this is where you come in and you work hard, and this is where you separate essentially the boys from men. And if you don't want to be here, get out of here. And if you want to stay here no matter what, because you're a pro, you get paid for this, and this is what you do, then you come here and play hard. And that's exactly what he did. So regardless of the system they bring in, I think Austin Hooper would be a good fit. Now, I don't want to sign him to anything crazy. If he can go out and get more money than he's worth, go for it. But
fuck, I'll pay his paycheck.
Yeah, right. But if there's a reasonable number to go get him for, absolutely, I'm game for it. He played really well this year.
Mike, one thing I think that's getting swept under the rug a little bit is the Patriots' lack of pressure again to the quarterback. What can they do to fix that? I mean, and we all say that the Judon trade was great, but Judon was really, really productive here, and they really missed that this year. So what can they do to address that?
One thing is bring in a defensive coordinator that actually, I don't want to be an asshole, but knows what he's doing. Like he was a defensive line coach coming to him, but it didn't really feel like there was any rhyme or reason to the pressure packages and the kind of way they did things. It just felt like nothing worked. And Keon White continued to allude to the coaching wasn't there, basically, and that he didn't like the way he had been being used. His pressure was up start of the season, and he kind of fell off down the stretch. The other thing is just players. Like, you just need good players. And that's what John Jones started to say the last couple of days as well, where how do you turn this around? Well, you need players. You need good players. And they don't have good players. And some of that on defense had to do with injury. Obviously, Jawan Bentley isn't a pass rusher, but Christian Barmore was helpful in the pass rush game, and he was out for the majority of the season. He was not able to rush the passer and then unlock people elsewhere. Matthew Judon, you mentioned he was gone too. So ultimately, it comes down to talent, and that's why talking about that top of the draft earlier, if you can bring in Abdul Carter, he is a dominant pass rusher. And yeah, he'll take some lumps early because he's only a kid, but it's my way of doing it is you bring in an experienced defensive coordinator who's able to generate pressure and know how to play line games and things like that, and then just bring in more talent, man. That's the name of the game at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think in terms of the coaching, if it's Rabel, I think you're confident in the fact that the defense is going to be vastly improved. And if it's Ben Johnson, I think we can all agree that some sort of head coaching experience on the staff is what's needed for the Patriots, whether that's at offensive or defensive coordinator. So a name like Robert Saleh comes to mind as somebody to potentially bring in on the defensive side. Or there's names out there, but they need people who have been in roles and understand how an organization works from the top down. So, they have that. Listen, it's going to be a fascinating offseason. If I don't think any of us expected them to have a great year this year, but this 4-13 team was absolutely worse than last year's 4-13 team, despite the same record, despite some of the things that happened. And it's onward and upward from here. Kudos to Robert for recognizing that he made a mistake, and for everything that we just talked about is what's to come for this team as we move forward. So, Mike, we want to wrap things up a little bit. Gotta ask you. So this is completely separate and apart. Pizza Friday is like a big deal for you that I see on Twitter every week. So how did Pizza Friday come to be? And is Chicken Caesar pizza really at the top of your power rankings?
It's not at the top. It is up there. It's really good. I'll get into that in a second. Pizza Friday, just as a kid growing up, like fake Catholic, like not really, but like, Easter and Christmas and all that bullshit. You do that kind of stuff. And then you have Lent and you're not supposed to eat meat on Fridays. So we always just ate pizza on Fridays. And, growing up, I did that. And then meeting my fiance, she did the same thing. And now we just always eat pizza on Fridays. It's nothing more than that. And now I just try and make it a thing. It's so much a thing, guys, that like now, if she doesn't want pizza on Friday, I'm like, but we want pizza. And I'm like, and she's like, you just want it for your fucking Twitter picture. Like that type of shit. Like, I'm like, yeah, you got to keep up with the brand, But so, no, that's kind of where that started. And then the exotic pizzas that I'll eat is just like, have you guys been to Town Spa? You guys around here?
Yeah.
I've been to Town Spa.
Okay. So they have this pickle pizza that is to die for, and it's one of their it's like one of their specials. And I've gotten it forever, and people get fucking pissed when I post it because like, you shouldn't be putting that shit on your pizza. Blah, blah. So now that's in the rotation. And then Conrad's in Norwood. There's one in Walpole as well. They have, obviously, they're known for their steak tips, but their pizzas are really good too. They have a chicken Caesar pizza. So it's chicken, it's Caesar dressing, some lettuce, croutons on a pizza, and it's bomb. I don't know what else to say. Like everyone gets pissed, and it's like, if you like, now I get if you don't like pickles. If you don't like pickles, you're not gonna like pickle pizza. But if you like pickles, just try it. And it's really the same with Caesar salad, right? If you like Caesar salad, you're gonna like the Caesar pizza. And everyone says, "Well, is the lettuce warm?" And like, no, it's fine. It's room temperature. It's a little cold. There's no marinara, or not marinara, but there's no like red sauce on the pizza. It's just the crust is used as your croutons, and it's fucking delicious. So if you haven't had it, you should really try it. I recommend
it. You've convinced me, and I live in Dedham. So Mike, we may have
to link. I grew up in Dedham. That's
we may have to link up at Conrad's and really try this chicken Caesar pizza. Maybe my mind will be changed.
Will say a Big Mac pizza is also great too. If you've ever had one of those, those are
little Thousand Island
fantastic.
Ernesto's, yeah.
Tortellini pizzas.
Crisp is a great pizza place in Norwood if you haven't been there yet as well. So
I had that a couple weeks ago actually. It's not bad. Kind of expensive.
Yeah. What isn't expensive these days? So to be honest, you can't find. If anyone knows where an affordable pizza pie is, you let us know.
Yeah,
we'll find it. Last thing, Mike, we want to wrap up with is tell us a little bit more about CNLS Media and your role there and where folks can find you. I think CNLS has really come onto the scene over the past couple of years, but people might not know about it. It's not like you have a TV channel per se that folks tune into or a radio station. So tell us a little bit more about CNLS and then your profiles on socials where folks can find you.
Yeah, so just kind of background on the journey I've been on. You mentioned Dedham. I grew up in Dedham, went to school in Worcester, went to Worcester State, hung out there for a couple of years, didn't know what I wanted to do. Came back home towards Boston, went to BU got my master's there. And the reason I say this is because when I was there, I was taking PR classes, but still didn't know what I wanted to do. Went to take a sports journalism class where my professor was Jerod Blakely, who used to be a Celtics reporter around here, Jerod, and at the time, he was transitioning from NBC to doing his kind of own thing and teaching, and he started a podcast with CLNS. And I didn't really know what it was either, but I could start an internship instead of taking some like bullshit PR lab thing when I was in my graduate program. So I was like, oh, I'll try that. I'll see what's up. So he was able to land me an internship at CLNS, which has turned its 180 degrees from where I was when I first started there. And I was just doing like audio, video, podcast editing, which is really what the company is now. It's essentially like everyone sort of touches CLNS at some point. Like Andrew Callahan from the Herald, his podcast is on CLNS. It's basically right now it's basically a podcast network, and they have a website as well where Taylor Kyle is my podcast partner, is their main beat reporter. And so it's basically like a new age media company that is ran by somebody by the name of John Zanis, who used to be an NBC exec around here. And so he was able to get the place credentialed, and that's kind of how it's sort of started to skyrocket. So I worked my way up through them. When Evan Lazar left for Patriots.com, I turned into their like pseudo beat reporter for only a year, but I was still part-time. Turned myself into a full-time reporter at EEI, and then I got laid off at EEI because everybody knows about EEI's financial situation. And so that's kind of what happened there. But now I'm back with CLNS, just doing the podcast, working for Sports Illustrated now full-time. So that's kind of where I'm at, doing some Patriots podcasting coverage, still credentialed there, and doing some writing for SI as well. So follow me on Twitter at Mike Kadlick, and go Pats. We'll see where things are at.
Awesome, Mike. Can't thank you enough. A fellow BU graduate as well. So go Terriers. We've run in some same circles here as well.
No shit. We gotta figure this thing out.
We'll have to meet at Conrad's or Cafe Fresh Bagel at some point.
Cafe Fresh.
Yeah, if you know, you know. Best breakfast sandwich in Massachusetts.
Folded eggs. Oh yeah, that shit hits.
And that
crazy food. Bacon, egg, and cheese on a chocolate chip bagel from Cafe Fresh.
Oh, I love it. All about it.
Good
Sweet and salty.
Love
it.
I'm glad you guys didn't boo me out of here like Jerod Mayo got booed.
We don't meet many foods we don't like.
Yeah. We could do a full food podcast if we really wanted to. Mike, can't thank you enough for jumping on with us. Pleasure to finally have you on the pod. We'll definitely do this again down the
Sure.
road. Really appreciate your time and best of luck in the off season. We'll be keeping up with you and all the reports that you have on the Patriots. Thanks so much.
Of course. Appreciate you. Thanks.
All right,
Thanks,
take
Mike.
care.
Thanks for
Yeah.
jumping on, man.
All right, appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, good stuff, fellas. Happy to do it. If you in the future need anything, hit me up, or I'm happy to come on whenever you need it. So it was fun.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
We'll definitely make it happen. We're gonna chat a little bit more about some other Boston sports stuff, but enjoy the rest of your night, and
Awesome.
we'll see you down the line.
Thanks, fellas. This was fun. Talk to you.
Peace.
Have a good night, man.
All right. Mike Kadlick, CNLS Media, joining us this evening. Great discussion on the Pats. Anything we want to wrap up with on the Pats? I mean, the game yesterday, like I can't believe that they actually went out and won that game. But it
Told you
is
they
what it
would.
is. It is what it is, as a wise coach that once coached here said. So let's keep the train moving. We've talked a lot about the Patriots and everything going on. It's time to go green. Time to go green, Big E.
Go green.
Oh,
Green
let's
for
go.
green.
Let's go green.
Green for
And let's
green.
join the Celtics, who are in the midst of a West Coast swing, or I wouldn't actually say West Coast swing, but a Western Conference swing. They have played 3 games on this trip so far, and they are 2-1. On this trip, they beat Minnesota in a tightly contested game. Anthony Edwards was bitching after the end of the game, talking about, oh, they're going to double me when I'm trying to shoot. You know, at the end of the day, Anthony Edwards, it
Uh,
doesn't really matter as long as you win the game, and you did not win the game. Next game, we ended up seeing old friend Ime Udoka in Houston, and we gave Udoka a little bit of a taste of his own medicine, where we held the Rockets to 86 points. Udoka, who is known for his defensive prowess as a coach, had to sit there and watch his team only put up 86. So interesting. I will say, like Udoka was here, obviously the circumstances around him leaving, not great. Really didn't appreciate him not giving Joe Mazzulla a handshake at the end of the game. To me, that's a little bit bush league, and you should be better than that, Ime Udoka.
Petty.
And then we'll bring it to our most recent game where the Celtics visited the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have been streaking, I think it was 14 straight games that they had
14,
won,
yeah.
and had a really great first half against them, and then just completely deteriorated in the second half. Only put up 20 some odd points. Just really not a great showing, and kind
I
of
think
fell
12
apart.
in the fourth quarter. It was
Yeah,
bad.
just like real bad. I mean, I know OKC is a really good team,
Really.
but we are also a really good team, and that's just not where we need to be.
Drew is
Overall,
slumping.
But to that
oh,
to that game though, I mean, I think that was a game plan decision. They took away the three, and they made the Celtics go to the hoop, and it was what did we shoot like awful
it's
from the
awful.
three. Yeah,
They
so
missed
I
they missed
mean,
over 43s. It was insane.
I
So,
think you gotta give OKC some credit there. They had a good game
oh,
plan.
absolutely. I'm not taking anything away from OKC. I think they clamped down. They did what they needed to do. But I think the fortunate news here is the Celtics still have one more game on this trip. They are going to be facing off against the Denver Nuggets on Tuesday this week, and they have a great opportunity to cap this trip off with a 3-1 out of 4 games. Obviously, anytime you're talking about going against Denver, you have to talk about Nikola Jokic and just what a force he is. Jamal Murray obviously is a great player as well. Westbrook has been playing better as of late. But outside of, their starters in Westbrook, they're a pretty weak and not deep team. So they have a great
They got
opportunity.
Gordon and a
Yeah,
couple
no,
other guys, but
they've got
They have
those
a
are
good top
starters.
six. Good top six.
They have a great top six. Outside of their top six, they're a little weak, right? So outside of that, I think we have a great opportunity to match up with them, get a win, come home, end up 3-1 on the trip. If we end up 2-2, I'm a little bit disappointed. Am I worried about where this team is? Just as we talked about last week, I am not worried. Josh, I want to toss it on over to you because I think you brought up a real interesting stat here, just on where the Celtics have been playing so far as their strength of schedule, and what does that look like from here on out?
Yeah, so the Celtics, did some research today, and they actually have the 26th most favorable schedule left in the NBA, which is great. And they have what 46 games left. And when you look at the division right now, the conference, it's really a race between them, Cleveland, and the Knicks. The Knicks are 8-2 in their last 10 games, so they're making a little bit of a push. They're only 2 behind the Celtics right now. But when you look at strength of schedule, the Knicks have the hardest schedule left in the NBA. And then you also look at Cleveland, who has the 5th hardest schedule. So that bodes well for the Celtics to make a second half push for the number 1 seed, which they can do. I mean, it's just you have to look at the strength of schedule and who they're playing, and they're playing a lot of terrible teams. They're playing the Pelicans twice, the Hornets twice, Toronto twice. So I really think they're going to make a push for the 1 seed, and I think Cleveland will hit a wall, and New York won't continue this really great streak that they're on right now.
The one thing that the Celtics have going for them is health, and I think that it's the first time on this trip that they've really
Knock
had
on wood on that.
the entire team available to them to play in games. That game versus OKC yesterday on Sunday, as we record here on Monday, was just that entire second half. Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, and Derek White all go
No
scoreless.
show.
I mean, you're going to lose any game where that happens. But health for this team has finally arrived. Big game against Denver, as we talked about, and I think we talked a little bit about this last week in the adversity. I do think it's good for them to be looking at a situation where they have to scratch and claw a little bit here in the regular season. It's not just a cakewalk. But I don't want to say last year was a cakewalk, but like they were
No,
dominant start to finish, and this
Well,
year obviously isn't the
but
case.
there's also a difference between being the hunter versus being the hunted, and everyone is
yeah.
giving them their best effort this year. Not saying
And
that they weren't getting the best effort last year, but they are the champs. So
and last year, I mean, they were a different kind of hungry last year than they were this year. I mean, let's be real. I mean, not to say that they don't want it as bad this year, because they always want to win. But I mean, there was all those rumors of, oh, can the Jays win? Do they break them up? Is this going to be it? You know what I mean? So n- now that they actually have it done, I don't want to say they took their gas off the pedal. I mean, their foot off the gas, but I feel like they're. I don't want to say that they're not, because they are taking it seriously, but I just feel like there's not as much as emphasis on that because they've attained that goal that they needed to. And they feel confident and they're comfortable and able to say, oh, yeah, when our backs are up against the wall, we can still pull it out and we can win and we can be world champs. So that's kind of where my whole take is in this
and
like
then
kind of mid-season slump.
yeah, and Sam, to piggyback off of that, if you're going into deep into the playoffs and you're winning championships, you're getting way less time in the off season to recover. This team now is, we're at almost at the halfway point here. This team they must be exhausted at this point. I mean, it's kind of normal for a champion to go through a little slump at this time, and thankfully with this team, that they can turn it on whenever the hell they want. And I think they're just kind of mucking through the regular season,
Mhm.
just doing what they need to do. I don't know if they're too worried about seeding at this point. And they know when that first round, when the lights turn on, they're there, they're ready to go. So it's just like you said, Sam. I think it's a different mentality. It's hard. It's hard to
Yeah.
always give
well,
it your best
and
effort.
I think the other thing to consider too is like the East has gotten better. Cleveland was injured going into last year. Josh has been all over the Cleveland since early in the season. The Knicks got better. Milwaukee is now finally starting to look like Milwaukee. Like it's not a cakewalk, and I don't think it was a cakewalk last year. I think the Celtics took care of business, and people just need to deal with that. But the great thing that they have in front of them this year is they have some challengers in their conference that they're going to have to go through. So it's going to be a fun playoffs when we get there, but we still have a while to go before we
Yeah,
reach that point.
yeah, absolutely.
Just keep everybody healthy.
That's what we got to hope for. And as we talked about a little bit, that Brad Stevens is watching and sort of thinking about, is there any sort of tinkering that might need to be done?
Maybe a
And
Lonnie Walker.
yeah, Lonnie Walker, you think about the moves last year and bringing in Xavier Tillman and some of the moments that he had during the playoffs. Look, there are probably some players in a player like Tillman and some guys at the end of the bench that aren't getting playing time here that would definitely be getting playing time in another location. So,
They
can
also have
you,
pieces outside of them too, like someone like a Springer, who is a really young
Yeah,
player who's got a lot of promise. He's a pretty affordable price tag. You might be able to flip him and someone else and get another piece back. So
JD Davidson
you
yeah,
just
has
threw up
looked.
a 40 bucket up in
He's
Maine.
so good, but there's no room at all for
Yeah.
for
No.
any player to rise on this roster.
It's a
agreed.
good problem to have.
Yeah,
It is. It
it's
is. I'm not complaining.
Trade him for a
yeah.
big man. Trade him for another big.
Yeah, they might need some help there.
Yeah.
The bigs in the NBA is such a conundrum. It's like they're either out there at the 3-point line as a 7-footer, and there's really no like there's not, for lack of a better term, as much banging going on down low as there used to be.
Well,
It's
I,
Jokic, man.
guys, I think it's time for the bull gang to come out and swap over the court to the ice and talk
Ooh,
about the other team on Causeway
they
and
ain't banging right
talk a
now.
little bit about the Bruins. Gabe, I'm going to
Sliding,
toss it over to you to talk a little bit about them.
Do we have to?
honestly. Ugh.
I'll start off with a positive for the Bruins. They did extend Mark Kasterlik the other day to a 3-year, $4.7 million contract. Kasterlik has been one of the bright spots, I think, for this Bruins team. It seems like he's just a real physical player. He's having a career year when it comes to offensive numbers. Still like a fourth line grinder type player, but you do need those players, and this is a good one. So I will give kudos to the front office in this extension. Definitely a player that I could see having success in the future with our team. But
Now the bad.
now the bad.
There's a lot of it.
Yeah. The Bruins haven't lost, or they haven't won a game since we last spoke, boys. They've currently on a 4-game losing streak. Things are looking pretty bleak right now. They're really going to start losing traction in the standings if they kind of keep this losing streak up. It's not only Tampa Bay that's behind you, but you also have Ottawa. You also have the Red Wings. You have some other teams that are still they're vying for that wild card position as well. So the Bruins, they need to watch out. They need to be careful here. They need to figure something out soon. I mean, they've had great, they've had bad, they've had horrible. Like you just never know what you're going to get with this team. It's hard to even know where to start. I think we start with Jeremy Swayman. He's had a terrible year. And we can all point to him having kind of like a short off season, and give him excuses for why he might be having a bad year. But I mean, if you look at his numbers, his save percentage is 40th overall in the league. His goals against is 37th in the league. I mean, those are backup goalie like numbers. Like you're getting paid like an elite goaltender, and you just haven't proven that contract. And I think it's really hurt this team this year.
So Gabe, I'm gonna agree with you, and I'm also gonna take a shot at Don Sweeney because he's the ultimate man to blame in this whole scenario. He goes out, he signs Elias Lindholm, he signs Zadorov to these huge contracts, and they're really not producing. They're giving you this like flat out eggs this year, and then if you sign Swayman and don't go into training camp the way it all went, I think I think it could have been different. I really do. I think you have to look at the product. It's almost like the Patriots. It really is. It's like you have to look at who that they put on the ice, and they just don't have good talent. They really don't. They don't have secondary scoring. They have
No.
a minus differential right now. I truly think this team's they're either gonna sneak in as the fourth seed or they're not gonna make the playoffs. I think we're seeing who they really are right now. I think they got a bump from the coaching switch a month or two ago, and you're really seeing what the team is right now. I think they're just a middling team,
Well, the question is,
unfortunately.
do you trust Don Sweeney to make the right move
No.
to like shake up this team at the trade deadline? And
What makes you trust Don Sweeney that he's done anything well in the past like 3 years? Like it's just been they've gone downhill, man. Like they've just been treading. They've really been treading, and it's been clear.
Yeah.
yeah, I think they need to figure out what direction they want to move in. And obviously Don doesn't want to go down because if they go in a bad direction, he's probably gone. So I would expect he's gonna try and swing for the fences here over the next month or so.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Do I expect anything, monumental to come from it? No, not at all. But I do think the guy's going to try.
I don't think Don Sweeney's every move that he's done has been bad. He's definitely had a few good trades and here and there, but the majority of things that he's done is
I'll,
just
I'll
pretty
tell you what,
detrimental to the team.
Yeah.
I do not want them to trade any first round picks, any second round
No.
picks. Like
No, that's
we
what I'm
need,
saying. That's what I'm
we
spraying
need to
at.
develop talent, and we can't just keep kicking the can down the road year after year. So if that's Cam Neely or if that's the Jacobs, I would really prefer that we don't trade any of these draft picks because we really don't have a lot in the pipeline right now, and the cupboard's bare. And
They
if you
want to
think about where the Red
collect
Sox,
draft picks right now.
if you think
Yes.
where the Red Sox were, for a long time, we all don't love where they've been, but they have developed a nice farm system, and they're injecting young talent into the team. The Bruins should take note.
It,
Sorry, I just
go
wanted to
ahead,
say
go.
they're like the prime example of just not accepting that this team needs a rebuild after
Mhm.
the Marchand, the Bergeron,
The Krejcis.
Krejci and Tuca and
Chara.
Chara.
Like, but that's
You
my
need a
yeah.
you need to like start over. Like they kind of just keep like muddling along with like
That's
adding
to my
players
point.
here and
Why are
there.
they
Like
why are they giving out all these huge contracts to Elias
yeah,
Lindholm and Zadorov when you need a reset? I just don't
yeah,
understand it.
yeah. It's frustrating as
I
hell.
think Sweeney's the one to blame. I really do. And he fucked up the Swayman thing, and he clearly screwed up the coaching situation too. Like he's really the guy that you gotta point
Neely
fingers
too.
at.
Neely's not out of the
Both
water.
of them,
Yeah.
100% Gabe. Well, the upper management. It's terrible.
It,
Sorry,
I,
Josh.
I don't think you can fire Sweeney and keep Neely on at this point. They're joined at the hip, and
Yeah.
if you're going to make a move, you got to get rid of both of them. I don't want to say that quite yet. I want to give them the rest of the season, but if things continue where it's trending, I wouldn't expect both of them to be with the team at the end of the year.
Yeah, they're a 2-for-1 for sure. It all starts with the Swayman thing, and I think Swayman is really probably the biggest problem that this team has because when he plays well and only is giving up a goal or two, they're losing those games 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, and then when he doesn't play well, they don't have the scoring to get themselves to a point of being able to put up 4 or 5 goals in a game to overcome his 3+ goals against average. Like he just has been terrible. Like
It's
and
it,
nobody's talked about it. Nobody has talked about
No
how
one.
poorly
oh,
Swayman has played. Like he has just been
Just
dog
wait.
shit. Like
it's not just him
The
though.
Pats are over. They're gonna start getting into
It's
it.
not just Swayman
Just
though.
wait.
I think this is the thing that we've talked about before. Hoyle not playing up to his potential. Zaka not playing up to his potential. Frederick not playing up to his potential. Like they have players here that if they were actually doing a little bit more of what we have seen from them in the past, this team would be in a better position. But these guys are all determining to have shitty years all at the same time, and it's affecting the product on the ice.
I do think that what you just said though is why they went out in this offseason and handed out the contracts to an Elias Lindholm and a Zadorov is because while we've talked about this reset, like what to their credit, the Bruins have not had this like hard reset like the Patriots have had over the past couple of years, or the way the Red Sox have struggled over the past couple of years. Like they somehow found a way, and especially 2 years ago when they had that unbelievable regular season. But like I don't know, maybe the Bruins are in a place where they have a shitty regular season, get into the playoffs, and somehow go on a run here and pull a fucking 180
Let's
on what
hope.
they've done over the past couple of years because it's up and down. It's a roller coaster ride. There's zero consistency to this season when it comes to them. Um, they're in a stretch here where they're pretty much playing every other day. So you got to pick up points. You got to get to a point where you keep yourselves in the playoff race. And a team that may have a chance to get back to the playoffs, maybe, as I see that they had an over-under set of 85.5 wins this season, which I think is fucking crazy. But
Take the over.
Kraz
I think
wants
they're on
the
the
over.
precipice of being the number 2 team in town right now, which is crazy to me.
Oh boy.
So
Kraz, take it away, Sox. Over
So I
to
know we talked about it a little bit last episode. We touched on the 6-man rotation. They're talking a little bit more about it. I love that idea. I mean, I think it's going to be beautiful for us. We're going to have one of the best pitching rotations in baseball when you think about it, going 1 through 6. Um, the other two big things that are on the news, and this just popped up like 20 minutes ago, is the Sox are now the front runner for Tanner Scott. He was the reliever for San Diego. He's a big lefty. He had like a 1.75 ERA with a 2.3 to 1 strikeout to walk ratio. And then, guy's just a fucking freak of nature. To add him with Liam Hendricks and Aroldis Chapman at the end is going to be great. Also, Nolan Arenado has decided to waive his no trade clause to come to Boston.
Yeah, he's definitely.
Sounds
So
like
Nolan Arenado
it's his preferred destination, correct?
at this point, yes.
But didn't there say
Which
something about
as
eating
of
salary?
Yes, that's the reason that I think that it hasn't gotten done yet is because Boston wants what's it called? St. Louis
St.
to eat.
Louis.
Yeah, St. Louis to eat not the majority or a decent. They're just trying to figure out how much they're gonna eat, I think, right now.
Well,
At this point, they should just fucking say, you know what, we'll take all of it. Fuck it. Who
Well,
cares?
but Sam, don't the Sox have some leverage right now because they can also just go out and sign Bregman, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, if Bregman goes somewhere else, then it becomes a
Or
little bit more of a different situation with Arenado. But right now, I think the Sox have all the leverage.
or you signed like a Randall Grichuk or uh Kim from the Padres. Those two guys are also coming up on the radar right now as well. All you really need is a right-handed bat to complement all the lefties out. This offense was there. So I mean, I'm not really too
Mhm.
concerned about them putting up runs. They know how to do that. The coach is in place. They have the culture. They have the young talent. They finally got the ace. Now it's just a matter of putting all those pieces on the field and seeing what happens when you lay them out.
Maybe Trevor Story will actually play some games this year too.
I
Well,
think he's going to have a good year personally.
I
Sam,
hope he
well,
does.
that's what
I'm rooting for him.
Sam and I were talking earlier. How we were having a love affair over Nolan Arenado and how much we like him as a player.
He's so good,
Um,
man.
but it also like gives me like like story vibes a little bit too. Like he's a little bit older in his career. Like he's kind of had injuries and probably not the player that you once thought he was. I kind of like wonder if this is another Red Sox like trick up their sleeve, like oh we're getting another like story type player who will never actually play for us.
Uh, wh-
Yeah, but the thing is he's like when you like look at defender statuses, like Rafi's here, Arenado's here, even when he's injured. So it's like the difference is pretty big. And don't get me wrong, Rafi's a great defensive third baseman, but Arenado's like a 10-time, 9-time, 8-time Gold Glover.
Yeah,
So it's just
yeah.
that and the fact that he's a righty and he's not really like, I mean, he is a pull happy hitter, but he's not like a crazy pull happy hitter. He spreads the ball out kind of evenly. But once you come into Fenway and you see that green monster, man, and you're a righty, you just want to pull it there. So I mean, I just that's where I think this team is trending. And I put in our notes, that what was a really savvy move, and we don't really see it now. We might see it, halfway through the season, uh, three-quarters of the way through the season when we really need Walker Bueller is going to be that Walker Bueller signing because Pavetta declined the option, said no to the 21 million. We signed Bueller for 21 million, and I know I touched on this last episode, and we get to keep the pick. So it's a huge win-win, I think. Not to say that Pavetta wouldn't have been a good number 3 guy or number 2 guy, but I just think with Bueller, you're getting a proven pitcher that's pitched in the postseason. Not only that, but he lied to Dave Roberts, told him he was good to go, and went and fucking closed out the World Series. So that's some fucking big ball shit right
I
there.
think Pavetta was like a home run waiting to happen too. He gave up a long ball a lot.
Always,
So
you'd
it's
see that
like
fucking curveball come
so
hanging in, you just
predictable.
want to sit on it and just
Yeah, get rid of that. No need for that.
I mean, they need to do the 6-man rotation because every pitcher they fucking buy is like has Tommy John surgery. So I feel like they must have done some research on that and said, hey, if we spread out these players' starts a little bit, maybe they'll last longer. Maybe they're less likely of a chance for a recurring tear in their elbow or something like that.
exactly,
Yeah,
Health is
exactly.
wealth.
it's interesting.
Give them 6 days rest, 7 days
Yes,
rest.
stay healthy.
give them credit for dramatically improving the pitching staff of this team, both in the starting rotation as well as in the bullpen.
It's not easy to do.
No, and I think that they've done a very, very nice job this offseason in doing that. I would love to see Nolan Arenado come in. It's reminiscent of Mike Lowell way back in the day, bringing in a player like that to solidify the lineup and
Hmm.
defensively. He might not be
Exactly.
what he once was, but to bring in a player like that, I think would be great in leadership to this team and somebody in the
Hmm.
clubhouse who's kind of been there and is a known name throughout baseball would be a welcome addition to this team. So bring in one of those players, and I think that as Big E said off the top of the Sox segment, like they might be. I don't know if they're number 2, but well
No,
maybe
I
after
said they're
this.
on the precipice. I said they're on the
Well,
precipice.
the Green are definitely at number 1, and it's a rotating, shuffling deck. Give it based on the day of the week and what the fuck's going
Hey, the
on.
Patriots could vault back into the 2 spot. They make some nice moves here over the next couple months. So I haven't, just decided that they're at the bottom of the barrel. The move yesterday, I think, was positive.
Yeah, that no credit
Kraft
to
owned up, which is
listen.
the biggest thing.
Hey, look, all the owners must have heard, and been pissed off that they've spent time in the penalty box because they've made decisions here over the past couple of weeks to improve the teams and do some of the things that the fans have been calling for. I go back to our first episode and what we talked about, what this podcast is going to be, and that like we were going to be vocal about when things were going good and when things weren't. And like, there's no doubt that we've voiced our opinion week in and week out on the show and across social media. And I think that it has to be like it has to be accounted for that the owners and the management of these teams hear it here, like, and they hear it here like they don't elsewhere. There's no doubt in my mind that the decision to fire Jerod Mayo had some influence on the fact that Gillette Stadium had 20,000 people there yesterday, tailgate lots
Booing.
that looked like deserted wastelands, and an apathetic fan base where every poll that I saw was over 90% of wanting to get rid of Mayo. So like, there's no doubt that doesn't make their way to
And Plotty, a lot of those fans were Bills fans. You have to think too that were there yesterday.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm
Oh
not.
my God.
I'm being serious. Like
They travel well.
a good portion of them for
They
sure.
travel well, but they drive like fucking assholes. I was going down 95 yesterday and almost got slid off the road from some fucking Buffalo moron. So, with that being said, let's
They travel well, but they don't travel well.
Correct. So, let's wrap things up in around town as we just talked about. No one in the penalty box right now.
John Henry got out.
He's out.
Yeah, he's out right
He's
now.
eating ice cream around the ice
Oh,
rink right now.
He's got his conjugal visits with Linda.
Ew.
Easy.
I don't want to hear about those.
No. All right, we're moving on to Big E's favorite segment of the week.
Boys, it is that time of the week. It is time for Yao. Those are things that we did not like or we don't think are great. And the things that we think are tremendous, which is, can I get a drum roll? Oh, yeah! Give me an oh, yeah!
Oh
All right, Mike, kick
yeah.
us off.
yeah.
I'm gonna start with because I have it up, and we had Jeff Kolb on, and we talked about Curtain Gate. Let's talk about Incentive Gate and how Jerry Jones didn't know about Cooper Rush's incentive-laden contract, where if he played 55 or what was it, 52% of the snaps, that he would, get I think $500,000.
give it
That
to
is
him.
such fucking bullshit. You are the GM. You literally just said, "I own the team. I'm the GM." That means you fucking write out the contracts, and you didn't know about the incentives. You fucking old senile bastard.
Hey, Jera, you got the money? Pay the man.
He's got the money.
That's that's a man.
Yeah.
Big Yao.
We'll keep the Ohs going and we'll end on a more positive note with yeahs after that. But a was just like Sunday was a terrible day in Boston sports. Like the way that Patriots game ended in the one pick being lost with Jerod Mayo coaching for the win, and then 90 minutes later his ass is out the door. The Celtics go and just completely poop their pants in the second half against Oklahoma City, and then the Bruins just put a nice cherry on top with a valiant comeback effort, but to eventually lose in overtime. Yesterday was just one of those sports days where you were so amped to sit on the couch, and by the end of it, you were like, all right, like what else can I put on the TV? Oh, I'm watching fucking Nikki Glazer on the Golden Globes.
I want to fucking jump in here too, because I really think football yesterday as a product was god awful.
Yeah.
Besides the late game, which ended up not being that great, there was really no implications for any team.
Oh, the Kansas City game.
I mean, that was a joke of a game. They were basically like, "Hey, Denver, we want you to get in the playoffs instead of Cincinnati, so we're gonna do our job."
37-0.
What did Mark Cuban say? What did Mark Cuban say?
Pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered.
The extra game. They wanted the extra game, and it's what does it do?
Yeah.
Nothing.
It was just awful product across the league. It was. I mean, obviously, we saw how bad the Patriots Bills game was, but that was pretty much what you were seeing on par across the league.
Yeah, but I don't think 16 versus 17 games makes a difference of what that was. Like the
They're just greedy. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, when it was a 16 game season, like those last games of the season were the same sort of thing with.
Yeah, but you're just playing with
I think
players' health, and it's just like I don't know. It's greedy to me. It's the owners just wanting more money.
It comes down to the fact that there's a huge talent gap in the league right now, and there's probably 6 to 10 teams that we can say are in contention, and the rest of the teams suck. So when you have bad football teams out there, you're going to get a bad product. And for those teams that are already locked in the playoffs, what did they have to play for? They didn't have anything to play for.
Speaking of that, I got Sean McDermott, that schmuck. He's throwing the game so the Patriots get the 4th pick. Like, honestly, like, to his credit, like,
mad respect.
It's smart on him, but it doesn't make him less of a schmuck in my eyes.
I agree. But like,
Bill Belichick would have been doing the same fucking thing if he
Belichick
was smiling the whole time.
Loved it yesterday. You know that.
Of course
he's down in Chapel Hill, signing all these players that are 17, 18 years old to come in. Don't sleep on UNC. I think that they're going to be a decent program next year for college. But,
don't sleep on Bill coming back to the NFL after this upcoming season. So
very, very true.
I got speaking of college football, and for the college football playoffs, it's been entertaining to say the least. Notre Dame upset Georgia, which was huge.
That was a great game.
I got a little bit of a differing view here, Gabe. I got a and an for the college football playoffs, because I think outside of that game and the Texas ASU game, was awesome. Cam Scatterbo. Let's get that guy
Patriot,
on. Please draft him in the 3rd round. Like, please. He was electric. But like, outside of that, some of these games have just been embarrassing. This Ohio State-Oregon game, and I know Oregon was the number 1 seed, embarrassing. Some of these teams that were put in there because, like, hey, we got to get a representative from this conference or that conference in the first couple rounds, embarrassing. With that being said, I do think the next 3 games are going to be absolutely fantastic. So I'm very much looking forward to them. But I think the committee needs to look at a little bit other things when they're going into the selection next year.
There's too many bowls. You have the Kraft macaroni and cheese bowl, the Pez
Snoop Dogg bowl.
Well, but those bowls don't matter. Those bowls don't matter. Those are just the consolation games for the people that didn't make it.
Well, Eric, I agree. I mean, I also agree. Like, it's also kind of like just because I think maybe there's too many teams in the playoffs. I mean, maybe they could cut it down a little bit, or it just seems like there is a bit of discrepancy between talent levels between teams. But I mean, I know Oregon got spanked, but it is kind of fun to see a number 8 seed crush a number 1 seed.
But is Ohio State like your typical 8 seed though? Because
they're typically that's the thing is like the seeding is all weird too. But one thing I'm excited about, the Texas mascot, it's like this big fucking like bowl like thing,
massive horns.
It wasn't allowed at the last game, but it's allowed at the Cotton Bowl.
It's bullshit.
So that thing is coming fucking out. I'm looking forward to just that part. I love college football for all the little intricacies of like each like college football town.
I wish I had a college team to root for, because I would be all over this. And hey, UMass, start being good at athletics.
Good luck.
You guys suck.
Yeah, right. Any Northeast team's gonna fucking blow up here unless it's professional.
Oh, yeah. I got to give a to Sebastian Thomas of the Rhody Rams. That guy is fucking awesome. He's hit 3 shots. He's hit 3 shots this year that are game winners. Go Rhody, 12-2. We got
gonna make it to the tournament.
The PA announcer of
we may have to do a repeat at down in Dedham and have that relive that all over again. Root for the Rhody Rams.
We're about 2 months away from tourney time. All over.
I think,
believe it or not,
we're gonna have to plan accordingly when it comes to March Madness and potentially do some sort of live stream, because the
100% live stream.
The vibes that we curated during the March Madness Palooza of a few years ago, and the too
tall.
Thank you, Fairly
Zach Edey.
That's Zach Edey for all you guys who don't know.
Zach Edey,
who's now like good in the league.
Fairleigh Dickinson or whoever the fuck it was.
Fairleigh, yeah.
It was Fairleigh Dickinson. He won me some money.
And the last 2 quick is I know we talked about football, some of the issues there, but football will be on the telly Thursday through Monday, with playoffs on both the college side as well as the NFL side. So hopefully some competitive games where the cream rises to the top here at the end of the season. A lot on the line. Did the Chiefs?
Anybody but Kansas City. Kansas City.
It's kind of
please, Baltimore, please, anybody.
Kind of them versus the field.
Buffalo, Detroit, Minnesota. Do your job.
It's competitive, man. It really is a competitive league.
A lot of good teams, yeah.
Lots of good teams. And I think Kansas City had a great year, but it's almost like we kind of talked about them in terms of like, was it a fool's year or not? But so we'll see in terms of the playoffs. And the last I got to give a big shout out to Teddy Stiga. scoring the game-winning goal for the U.S. in the World Junior Hockey Tournament to win the gold. Local kid from Sudbury, Mass. Kid.
Ooh, the Suds.
So big shout out to Teddy Stiga and the USA juniors team, and I'm sure many of those players will be seeing in the NHL and so on and so forth in the upcoming years. So
that was an electric tournament.
Electric tournament. Playing Freebird after they score is top notch. Like
Canada going out early, it was a good one.
Isn't there some like hockey world palooza going on?
There is a big it's four nations.
I will say
happening at the Garden.
They have to make the juniors more accessible to find on TV, because I think it was on NHL Network or something like the likes. I feel like I couldn't find it. I don't know.
You need that Canadian.
Network, yeah.
I don't know if it was just me, but I think they need to make those a little bit more accessible in prime time. For
you need Canadian cable.
Well,
it's good hockey. I like watching the juniors. It's great.
Just to kind of catch up what we were just talking about, there is the Four Nations face-off, which is coming up in about a month and a half. It's Canada, Finland, Sweden, and U.S. All facing off. There are going to be games in the Garden, at the TD Garden in Boston, as well as the Bell Centre in Montreal. So that'll be something for us to talk a little bit about as we have a little bit of a lull in hockey and, start talking a little bit more about our Team USA pride there.
For sure. We'll keep our eyes. We'll do a nice little preview of that tournament when it gets a little bit closer. And with that being said, we've reached the end of our episode here with the Pike. Bruins with a couple games coming up this week. The Celtics as well. Patriots officially on to the off season.
Thank God.
On the search for a new coach, which we will certainly keep our eyes and ears open. The plan is to have Karen Garigian join us once again next week. And the only way that Karen might not be able to join us is if there's breaking news that happens around the time of our recording. So hopefully not the case, but hopefully we have some good stuff to talk about with Karen. Otherwise, we're gonna talk about go into more of the season and dissect it a little bit and any developments here in the next week or so. And we have some great guests lined up over the course of the next couple of weeks as well. We got JV from URI, PA announcer. We got a little musical guest coming up with our buddy Sam Hellerman, drummer of the band Ripe.
Hell yeah!
We just confirmed the Saj Mike Riley, PA announcer of Gillette Stadium and formerly of 98.5, and then a couple Barstool folks with Dante the Don and Clem coming up with us in February. So loaded guest schedule coming up for the Boston Sports Brothers. Lots of good things that we'll be talking about.
Can't wait for Clem Zingas. Very excited.
Gonna be a hell of a week, and you might see a New York minute snuck in there as well. Just
I'm just kidding.
Too much New York.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's that first week of February, the Celtics play the Knicks, and I think the Bruins play the Rangers twice. So we'll have to. And
it's Super Bowl Sunday, correct?
Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah,
we got some New York ears listening.
Yeah, well, we got to expand the reach. We want to beat those teams, but any New Yorkers are more than welcome to listen.
Hey, if they can't beat us, they can join us
and listen to greatness.
Exactly. So, gentlemen, any farting words?
Well, actually,
if you got a fart, go ahead.
Not any
farting words.
We won't judge you.
All right. Well, I'll let it rip off there. Anyways, boys,
Happy New Year's, boys.
So
always
good.
A pleasure.
Yeah, happy New Year's, everybody.
Mike, appreciate you joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you again, Mike.
Yeah, very insightful.
Big shout out, Mike. And we appreciate his time as always. All right, boys, take care. We'll see you next time.
All right, peace.
See ya.
Night, boys.